So picture this. An AI agent, just software running on its own, needs to call another AI model to finish a job. Normally, a human pulls out a credit card or pastes in an API key, but this time, the agent pays the bill itself. It signs a tiny payment, sends it across the XRP ledger, and gets its answer back in about a second. No human, no login, no card. And here's the part that got me. Before that money moved, something checked the agent, read why it was about to pay, and decided whether to trust it. That something is a San Francisco startup called T54, and Ripple just put money behind it. So today, let's talk about how AI agents learn to pay their own bills. Okay, so where did T54 come from? It really starts with one person, Chandler Fang, whose background is basically the whole idea in a single resume. He spent years at JP Morgan working on payments, even on JPM Coin, the bank's own digital token, then moved to Ripple, working on cross-border payments. So he built bank rails and crypto rails before he ever thought about AI agents. He started T54 in San Francisco around one simple observation. Our entire financial system was designed around humans, human identity, human decisions, human accountability. But AI agents are about to become real economic actors that move money on their own. And there's no standard way to ask the basic questions. Who is this agent? Can we trust it? And who's responsible if it gets something wrong? The way Fang puts it, agents are already moving money, unverified and unaccountable. So the mission, in their words, is empowering a trusted agentic economy. And in February of 2026, that pitch landed a $5 million seed round. Now look at who showed up. It was co-led by Anagram, PL Capital, and the asset manager Franklin Templeton, with Ripple joining as a strategic investor. So when a name like Franklin Templeton and a payments company like Ripple both write checks for agent trust infrastructure, that tells you this is not a toy. One of those backers at Franklin Templeton said it plainly, that T54 is building the trust and verification framework institutional finance will require. So to get what T54 actually builds, you need one idea first, and it's called X402. And here's a fun bit of trivia. Way back when the web was invented, engineers set aside a little status code, number 402, and labeled it payment required. And for about 30 years, it just sat there, unused. Then in 2025, Coinbase dusted it off into an open standard called X402. And the idea is beautifully simple. An agent asks a server for something. The server says, "Sure, that'll cost a fraction of a cent. Here's the bill." The agent signs a tiny stablecoin payment, attaches it to the request, and gets its answer in about a second. No account, no API key. But here's the gap T54 spotted. X402 moves the money beautifully, but it has no idea what the agent was actually thinking. Every autonomous payment is basically a black box. So T54 built X402 Secure, an open source layer that sits right in front of the payment, and inside it runs their risk engine called Trustline. So think of it like this. If X402 is the toll booth that lets the agent slip a coin through and drive on, then Trustline is the bouncer at the door. Before any money leaves, it checks the agent's ID. It reads the agent's reasoning, the actual chain of, why am I about to pay this? And it hands back a verdict, low, medium, or high risk. And the agents don't even juggle private keys themselves. To be fair, that means trusting T54's setup, and they're still early. But the design is genuinely clever, because it keeps a receipt and the security footage for every single payment. So in February of 2026, T54 took all of this and shipped it on the XRP Ledger. They call it the XRPL X402 Facilitator, and the way it works is elegant. The agent signs a normal XRP Ledger payment ahead of time, what they call a pre-signed blob, and the facilitator simply verifies it and settles it. T54 never holds your keys, never takes custody, and there are no API keys. It can settle in XRP and in stablecoins like Ripple's own RLUSD and USDC. And it's already live in production with a service called Block Run AI, a gateway that lets agents reach more than 30 AI models. Think GPT, Claude, Grok, and pay per call, settling on the XRP Ledger. Now here's where I want to be completely straight with you, because trust is the whole point. T54 is not a blockchain, and it has no token. It's a layer riding on top of XRPL, Solana, and Base, and it is early. Even the coverage announcing it was honest enough to say, this doesn't guarantee meaningful volume yet, with one big named partner so far. And letting software spend money on its own is genuinely risky. An agent stuck in a loop draining a wallet, or getting tricked into paying the wrong person. But that's exactly the problem T54 is building guardrails for. And they're not alone. Coinbase has its own X402 over on Base, and Google is working on an agent payment standard too. T54's bet is that the XRP Ledger, fast, cheap, with a regulated stablecoin in RLUSD, is a natural home for agents to pay each other. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. T54's bigger idea is something they call the Agentic Risk Standard. And here's the mindset shift behind it. You can't make an AI model perfect. It's going to get things wrong sometimes. So instead of chasing a flawless agent, they make the protection deterministic, which means when an agent does a normal task, the payment sits in escrow and only releases once the work checks out. And for risky stuff, like trading, it adds an underwriting layer that prices the risk and can demand collateral upfront. And this isn't just marketing, it's a real research paper, co-written with researchers from Google DeepMind, Microsoft Research, and Columbia University. In their simulations, and I want to stress these are simulations, not live results, this approach cut user losses by somewhere between 25% and 60%. Then there's the product that made me smile, called Claw Credit. It's basically a credit card for AI agents. An agent builds a credit history, spends responsibly, pays it back, and unlocks higher limits over time, the same way a person does. They even plugged in World ID, so an agent tied to a verified human gets a small starter line of credit right away. So step back and look at the stack. There's an identity layer, know your agent. There's the risk engine, Trustline, and there's credit and settlement on top. Put it together, and it's basically a tiny bank built for software. So the big question is, why does Ripple even care? Why would a company built on cross-border payments invest in trust infrastructure for AI? Because this is exactly the next frontier for them. Ripple's view is that AI's real growth depends on trusted, compliant settlement, not chatbots, but agents that can move regulated money safely. RippleX, their developer arm, summed up the moment in 3 words: agent commerce is coming. And their stablecoin, RLUSD, becomes the natural way for an agent to settle in something stable instead of a volatile token. Now, is T54 out there alone? No, and that's the encouraging part. Another project, Virtual's Protocol, already brought its own agent commerce system onto the XRP Ledger, built right on top of T54's Facilitator. And if you zoom out, the momentum is real, and you can measure it. Over on Coinbase's side, X402 has already crossed 100 million transactions. By late spring, there were something like 69,000 active agents. Google lined up more than 60 partners for its own agent payments push. So this is not one company's daydream, it's a whole new category forming in real time. And T54's position is refreshingly simple. They want to be the trust and credit layer underneath all of it, no matter which chain ends up winning. So let's bring it home. For almost all of history, moving money required a human in the loop, someone to approve it, someone to be accountable. T54 is betting that's about to change, that software agents will transact on their own, millions of times a day. And the only thing standing between useful and chaos is a trust layer, an identity check, a risk score, an escrow, a receipt. And whether or not T54 turns out to be the winner, that layer simply has to exist for any of this to be safe. So maybe they built it early, but what I respect is they built it in the open, and they've been honest about how young it still is. So here's the one real takeaway, and it's not about price, because we just don't do price here. If you're a builder, here's your action item. T54's X402-Secure Toolkit is open source on GitHub, Apache licensed, a single install. And the XRP Ledger Facilitator docs are live right now. With a quick start, you can deploy today. So if agents paying their own way still sounds like science fiction, the code is right there to go try yourself. And if this was useful, go ahead and subscribe because this is exactly the kind of thing we love digging into. I'll see you in the next one.